All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're opening up a practical toolbox, drawing from Patrick King's fantastic book, Read People Like a Book. We're going to break down the actual techniques you can start using to decode what people are really thinking and feeling, from their body language all the way to their deeper motivations.
I mean, seriously, who hasn't had that thought? Wishing you could just get a little peek behind the curtain. Look, this isn't about becoming a mind reader. It's about developing a real practical skill. Think of it as a kind of superpower for navigating your daily life, whether you're at work or just grabbing coffee.
So here's how we're going to fill up your people reading toolbox. First, we'll cover the basic art of reading people. Then, we'll get into decoding what drives them. After that, we'll tune into the unspoken language of the body, look at personality blueprints, and finally, wrap it all up with the power of active observation. Let's get to it.
Okay, first up, the art of reading people. And the core idea here is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Human behavior isn't just random chaos. Nope, every action is a clue. It's a breadcrumb trail that leads you right back to what a person truly wants and thinks.
And this quote from the book just nails it. You start with the thing you can actually see, their actions. From there, you just work backward. You ask, okay, why did they do that? That gets you to their motivation. And once you understand their motivations, you start to understand who they really are. It's that simple. Action, motivation, identity.
Right, so let's grab the first and maybe most important tool from our toolbox, decoding motivation. If actions are the what, then motivation is the why. And if you can get the why right, everything else starts to fall into place. It's the foundation of all of this.
You know, when you boil it all down, we're all driven by two primal forces. We're either moving towards pleasure or we're moving away from pain. But here's the real kicker. That drive to avoid pain, it is almost always the stronger motivator. We will work way harder to keep from losing $10 than we will to gain $10.
Now, digging a little deeper, we find something Carl Jung called the shadow. This is basically all the stuff about ourselves we don't like to admit. Maybe our jealousy, our insecurity, you name it. We push it down, but it still finds a way to drive our behavior. So if you see someone have a weirdly angry reaction to a coworker's promotion, you might be seeing their own shadow, their hidden insecurity, bubbling up to the surface. And of course, we've got Maslow's famous hierarchy of needs. This is such a great roadmap. Someone who's worried about paying rent is motivated by completely different things than someone who's trying to find their life's purpose. If you can figure out which level of the pyramid someone is on right now, you'll know exactly what's important to them.
Okay, tool number 2 is all about reading the unspoken language. We just talked about the why, so now let's focus on all those signals people are sending out constantly without ever saying a word.
This quote really says it all, doesn't it? We can choose our words very carefully. We can lie, we can spin things, but our bodies, they often give away the game. Our nonverbal cues are instinctual, they're unfiltered, and they are a direct pipeline how we're actually feeling.
A fantastic place to start is with what are called micro-expressions. The researcher Paul Ekman found that these 6 emotions have facial expressions that are recognized in every single human culture on the planet. They flash across the face for just a fraction of a second, but they can reveal a person's true feelings, even when they're actively trying to hide them.
But, and this is a huge but, you have to be careful. It is a massive mistake to fixate on just one single gesture. You see someone with their arms crossed and you think, aha, they're defensive. Well, maybe. Or maybe the air conditioning is just cranked up and they're cold.
So here's the key. You have to look for clusters. A single cue on its own is pretty much meaningless. But a group of signals all pointing in the same direction, now you're onto something. So, crossed arms, plus a clenched jaw, plus they're angled away from you. See? Now that is telling you a much more complete and much more reliable story.
A perfect example of a behavioral cluster to look for is what we call pacifying behaviors. These are the little things we do subconsciously to calm ourselves down when we feel stressed. Think about someone rubbing the back of their neck or touching their face or just fidgeting with their hands. When you see a few of these happening together, it's a huge red flag for anxiety, no matter how calm they might sound. All right, let's zoom out for a second. So far, we've been looking at clues in the moment. Our next tool helps us understand a person's consistent patterns over the long haul. We're talking about their personality blueprint.
And this is so important. A person's personality is the context for everything they do. It's like the decoder key for their actions. Think about it. Someone being blunt might mean one thing if they're a super agreeable, friendly person.
and something completely different if they're naturally more analytical and detached. Context is everything.
One of the best frameworks for this is the Big Five model. Now, this isn't about shoving people into boxes. It's about understanding their tendencies on a spectrum. For instance, a person high in openness is your friend who's always up for a spontaneous adventure. Someone low in openness, they probably prefer to go back to that same comfortable vacation spot year after year. Understanding where people generally fall on these 5 scales gives you a huge advantage in predicting their behavior.
Okay, it's time to put all of these tools together. This is where we go from just knowing the stuff to actually using it, by becoming an active observer. And what better way to put our new skills to the test than by tackling the very tricky world of lie detection?
But first, a quick reality check. Did you know that the average person can spot a lie with about 54% accuracy? 54%! That's basically a coin flip. And it proves that looking for that one tell, like avoiding eye contact or fidgeting, it just doesn't work. So here's a much smarter way to go about it. See, lying is hard work for the brain. It takes a ton of mental energy to make up a story and keep all the details straight. So instead of looking for a nervous twitch, your job is to increase their cognitive load. Ask them open-ended questions, ask them unexpected things that they couldn't have rehearsed, and then you just listen, not for body language, but for inconsistencies in their story. That's where lies fall apart.
And one last fascinating skill is something called thin slicing. It's our brain's incredible ability to make surprisingly accurate snap judgments based on just a tiny bit of information. That gut feeling you get about someone in the first few seconds? Research shows it's often right. The key is to trust that initial intuition, but then use all the other tools we've talked about to test it and see if it holds up.
So after all of this, what's the big takeaway? It's this. Reading people isn't some kind of magic trick or a secret you're born knowing. It is a skill. And just like any other skill, it's something you can learn and get better at with practice. It's all about observing, being curious, and paying attention.
So now you've got the tools. You have a whole toolbox ready to help you look past the surface and start understanding people on a much deeper level. The only question left is, who are you going to start with? Thanks for diving in with me today.